The Hero's Journey, a Mindful Accord podcast, with your host, Rich Decker.
Hello, and thank you for taking some of your valuable time to listen to the show. If you enjoy this show and have been inspired by this episode or another episode, I would encourage you to join our Patreon page. For those who are unfamiliar with Patreon, it's a platform that allows artists and content creators to build relationships with their audience, while at the same time earning enough money to keep providing the content. When you join our community, you will gain access to exclusive content such as live guest Q&As, behind the scenes, and other exclusive offers. And you can join for as little as $1 per month. There's a link in the show notes that'll take you directly to our page. My guest for this episode is author and marriage communication expert Amity Quist Jones. Amity was raised by her father after her mother chose to leave the family when Amity was a small child. It's usually the other way around, with the father leaving his children. However, this gave Amity the opportunity to learn many valuable lessons from her father. A great, and let's face it, an unusual lesson her father taught her was about dating and marriage from a male perspective. Amity took these unique and valuable lessons and wrote 2 books. Her first book was Dating Tips from Dad, How to Win the Dating Game. She followed that book a year later with Your Marriage Rescue Plan, 10 Secrets to Mastering Your Marriage Communication. She is a certified SYMBIS facilitator. SYMBIS is a pre-marriage assessment program. And she recently released her own online course, Rock Your Marriage Talk. This course is designed to quickly get to the next level of communication in your marriage. Now, I must tell you, we did have some challenges with Amity's audio, but the content was so good. I said, let's just go ahead and release it. This is the hero's journey of Amity Quist Jones. Enjoy. Well, thank you, Amity. Thank you for joining us today on the Hero's Journey, a Mindful Accord podcast. I'm excited to hear your story. I've never actually talked to a relationship expert, and I've had numerous challenges in many relationships in my life, so I'm hoping to learn something and to share that with our listeners. Let's start at the beginning of your journey and how you ended up being a relationship expert. Can you tell us about your childhood, where you grew up, and can you share something with us that your parents instilled in you that you carry with you today that maybe perhaps got you through some difficult times in your life?
Sure. Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm really excited to get to chat with you today. So I grew up in Mesa, Arizona, and absolutely loved the area. My dad grew up in Montana, so he wanted to make sure that his place, as soon as he was done with the Air Force, that he would settle into somewhere that was warm. So he picked Mesa, Arizona. And so my parents, they split up from the time I was 8. My mother is from Thailand, and so she decided she didn't want to hang out with and be a mom anymore. So she moved to a different state. And so we were on the 2 to 5 year program with her. We would see her once every 2 to 5 years. I guess I didn't really think that it was normal or wasn't normal. I didn't really know. My dad, I just knew that all my other friends, if their parents split up, that they stayed with their moms. And so I knew that something was a little different, but my dad didn't have any outside interference with my mom being involved with our relationship. So like the thing that I can say about my dad is that he was in sales. He was in insurance sales when he got out of the Air Force. So he always instilled in us as kids is that we can do anything that we want. That can't was not a part of our vocabulary. And so I just assumed that I can do anything because that was the only thing I had heard growing up. And of course, we had our daily chores and our Saturday morning deep cleaning chores. And that's something that I continue to do as an adult, even, today. And I've done that. I started that with our kids, that we have our Saturday morning chores and we, do our daily chores of keeping stuff picked up and make our beds. But I'm trying to teach them now as they're growing up that can't is not a part of our vocabulary, that they can do anything. because I want them to know that it's okay to get out there and try things. And sometimes it's not going to work out, or sometimes it will work out. But I just want to see the effort of trying something new. And just like a few days ago, my daughter decides she wants to make flower balloons, and she'd never done that before. And I was encouraging her. I said, hey, great job on trying something new, because that wasn't really something that she would have thought about doing. But out of nowhere, at 8 years old, she's like, Mom, I want to try making balloon animals. Okay, let's try it.
Well, since your mother, it was a little different for you. Most of the time when you hear these stories, it's usually the man that is not around much, but having a female that's not around much. What did your dad say to you, and how did you feel about that compared to your friends in school?
Well, he made it seem like we were the Three Musketeers. So it never really felt like we were outside of the box because of how he marketed it to us. Like, he never said one bad word about my mother. He was like, oh, whenever she'd do something that was kind of off the grid, then he's like, oh, sounds like your mom. And that was it. He made sure that he was always on the positive end with her, and that he just really made sure that we knew that we were not the cause of the problem. That, it's like, oh, it didn't work out between your mom and I, and that was it. We didn't really go into a lot of discussion about it, other than, that was a choice that she had made, and it was okay. That was what she decided she wanted to do, and continue on, because life was still going on with or without her.
Did you feel different from your peers because of that situation?
I guess I just didn't really consider it a big deal. I just knew that at that time that it was pretty unheard of that when the parents split up, that the father would take that. But I learned so much from my dad. So the women that my dad dated, or all the women that were in my life, like my grandmother, I have 3 aunts that are on my dad's side of the family. And there was always a lot of women that were in my life. And so there was things that I would take from them, and I'd incorporate them into my life that I liked. Oh, this person does her nails. I like that. Oh, this person takes really good care of their skin. I like that. There was just and my grams had a really funny way of spinning things, of just making things so much more fun. And I liked that in her personality. So I wanted to be like that. So to me, I think I had the best of all worlds, because I got to be around all these women, incorporated what I had liked. And my dad was so easygoing and fun. And he was always there, since he worked insurance sales when I was growing up, that he was able to work the same shift basically as our school hours. And so when we were home from school, then he would come home usually shortly after, and he didn't work nights or weekends. He was off during the summer, and he would take Christmas and Thanksgiving break off. So we were really lucky that we got to spend so much time with our dad growing up.
Growing up, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I really didn't know. I just knew I loved sales. I knew I loved talking to people. I didn't really daydream of what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I think I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I love being a published author. I love creating something, but I don't really feel like I'm creative. I don't like being stuck in the creative spot. I hate sitting in front of my computer. I love being out. I'm very social, and like going to the gym. I've lived in Oregon for a year now, and I know a lot of people at the gym already, where people were like, oh my goodness, I've lived here all my life, and I don't know anywhere close to half the people that you know. So I get energy from being outside and being around people.
What's your relationship like with your mother now?
It's very simple. We send text messages to each other here and there. She lives in Arizona, in Mesa, and once in a while she'll call me, but it's pretty simplistic as a relationship. She doesn't spend any time with my kids. or make any effort with them. No Christmas gifts or birthday gifts. I'm actually surprised if she remembers my birthday. And I think the only reason why she remembered it is because of Facebook. She was able to see that it was my birthday.
Well, doesn't it cause you pain to know that your mom is that disinterested in your life?
No, because there are so many people around me that love me, and whether it's my friends or I have just adopted people. And as life gets older, I have just found that you just automatically gravitate to the people who are going to bring you positive and light. And that's where I go. I just do so much better with that. And even though moving to Oregon, so I've left all my friends in the Folsom where I used to live for 12 years. And even though I've kept all those relationships and I've built new relationships, but I know that just because they're family or their blood doesn't mean that they have to be a downer for me, that I just go and I automatically seek positive and happy people. That's where I want to be. Because as I get older, I'm finding I want to spend less and less time with negative people, and I want to spend more time with fun people because I like to have fun.
Well, that's healthy, but it's just an unusual relationship with a mother. Like I said, that usually it's the dad that's not around, but this time it's the mom. Have you ever asked her why she did what she did or why she does what she does? Have you ever asked her?
No, I honestly don't think she would tell me the truth anyway, even if I asked her. When I discovered I had abandonment issues, it was about 15 or 16 years ago when I had a fight with my ex. And he would leave for a hunting or fishing trip for about 3 to 4 weeks at a time. And when he'd come home and somehow he said something and it struck a nerve and he said, well, for some reason, whenever I leave, it's almost like I'm trying to get back into the household in a sense. He felt like he was abandoning me. And when he said that, I go, wow, I guess I have abandonment issues. And so it took me a couple weeks to figure out what words I was going to talk to my mother, because I didn't want to sit in and wallow in this. I wanted it to be taken care of and dealt with. And so I spoke to my mom about it. And so she turned the story around and made it to where she felt like the victim in her story, which I later found out about 4 years ago that everything that she had told me was a lie. And so I don't actually really trust anything that she says to me because maybe it's honesty in her mind. But when I found out that it wasn't really true, and I don't think she really thought I would find out the truth. So when I came home from Thailand and I told my dad, because my dad and we are very close. I talk to him almost every day. And I said, well, I found out my mom lied to me about this. And he goes, so are you going to confront her? And I go, no, because she'll probably just lie to me about it. And he's like, well, good point. And it's okay. It's okay that she's in that spot. And as life gets older, I find that it's okay. It's okay for her to be where she's at, and it's okay to be where I'm at. And my family, my husband loves and adores me, and I've just been very thankful for everything that I have and the relationships that I have.
So how did you learn to deal with your resentment, or did you just not have it, or how did you learn that skill? Because most of us don't have it. I don't have it.
Well, maybe it's being naive. I just did not even realize that I even had abandonment issues. I didn't really feel like I had it. My dad did a really good job with making me feel extremely loved and appreciated. I was probably one of those very unusual kids that if I saw something in like junior high and high school, that I would just do it. Like the yard needed to be mowed, so I would just automatically do it. And my dad I was just always on autopilot of, okay, this needs to be done, so check. So I guess I've got a mental checklist. And in my mind, I don't really think that I had issues with that. But once I discovered I had it, like, oh, wow, I do have abandonment issues. I need to deal with it right away because I did not want this to be hovering over me. So I don't know if it's really denial, but I just didn't really see that. I didn't see that I had abandonment issues. I'm very easygoing, so not a lot of things really bother me. I am very motivated, very driven. I've got like a checklist of things that I do. And like my kids, I really want to make sure that they have the understanding that they are loved, and no matter what, I know they're going to make mistakes, but I am always going to be here for them because my dad was here for me no matter what. And so I want to carry on that so then our kids can come to us at 5 years old, 15, 25, 50 years old, no matter the good, the bad, and the ugly. Where I didn't have that with my mom, so that's okay, but I had that with my dad. And I have that with a lot of my friends. I'm like, this is just me. If you want honesty, I'll give it to you. But if you want somebody to sugarcoat it, then you need to call somebody else. So nobody has to guess with me and what my intention is. I don't want to hurt somebody. So I won't go after them and say, oh, well, this is what you did and hurt me. But if they're coming to me and asking for help, like, hey, Amity, I need help with this, then I know that they are open to receiving it. Like, I don't think if somebody would have come to me and said, hey, Amity, you have abandonment issues, I don't know if I would have really seen it or understood it at that age because I didn't know any better from 8 years old on. I didn't know what abandonment issues were.
Did your father ever remarry?
Yes, he's been married to his wife for, I believe, over 25 years now. So yes, he remarried and he actually started a second family. So I have a younger brother and a younger sister, which was hard because I wasn't able to build a relationship with them because I was already off to college. Where now, as they're older, then my younger brother, who's the baby, he's 22, and we are really very similar in personalities. And so it's great that he can come to me and I can go to him and I can help guide him to the things that were really helpful for me. And even though he was raised with the same dad, but he didn't get all of the really cool stuff that I learned. So he gets to get it in a different form through me.
So what did you learn from your father?
Well, he taught me how to date. He taught me
Can you explain that? I've never heard that before. Meeting you is the first time I've ever in my life heard that before. Can you explain to me what that means?
Well, he made sure that even at 5th grade, guys started calling, and he said, you can only return a phone call from a guy. You cannot actively call him. So it was there was no lines as far as like, you can start dating at 16, you can start dating at 18. He never said that I could or could not do that. But I was so busy that I didn't really have the time to date, and I could care less because I always knew that dating was always going to be there. So I pretty much started dating a little bit more in college, but he had some ground rules, and he said that he told me this funny story. He said, when I was in college, so you can imagine my dad is 6'7" and basketball figure. So he's very athletic. So he always had, whenever he'd go to the bar, he'd always have lots of girls saying, hey, and handing their phone numbers to him. And so how he would describe this story, he said, the girls would hand me phone numbers, but the problem was that I never asked for them. I only kept the phone number of the girl that I had to go and work for and had to ask her for her phone number. Because that is the girl that I wanted to, call up and go through all the formality. So I take this as like the deer story. So if you are a hunter, then you have to go out and track the deer and go see where they're going, and you're watching them for a couple weeks before you actually go out and kill them. And then that's the one you take home and you mount it on the wall. And it's really, this beautiful thing that you had to work really hard to get to. But then, are you going to appreciate the deer if the deer comes and knocks on the door and then drops dead on your doorstep? Would you appreciate that more, or would you appreciate the one you had to work for? And so that was the funniest story that people can relate to of, that's what men are. Men need to hunt for their girl, hunt for the deer in a sense, and they'll appreciate it more. So like my husband had to do the same thing. When I got back into the dating, I had to go back to everything my dad taught me back from when I was in 5th grade. And I had to let my husband pursue me. Of course, the funny thing is I was selling a dirt bike. So he came to my office and looked at my dirt bike and then asked me on a date later. And I never kiss on the first date. So that is even funnier. A lot of people don't understand that. I ran away and I'm like, okay, great, thanks. And ran to my car and took off. And so I've heard a lot of my girlfriends say, oh, but I'm so affectionate. I'm like, I'm extremely affectionate, but I do not ever, there's no hugging, there's no fist bump, no high fives. At the end of the date, it's, run for the car. And so one of my girlfriends, she said, so how many times, what's the chances of them calling you back after that? And I said, always. They have always called me back after the first date.
You want what you can't have. Is that the idea?
Well, because guys need to work for it. They need to know, like, wow, well, if I say that I slept with my husband the first date, then he's going to think, well, she did that with everybody else. What's the value? And then, because that's the point where you want to make it something special, because realistically, once you have sex with somebody, then everything's out the window. Communication's out the window. You don't talk as much anymore. So it's just, I'm really thankful that I learned all these great things that my dad taught me of how to get, he was probably just looking out for me. Okay, this is what a man wants. So this is what I'm going to teach my daughter. So then she gets this amazing, healthy relationship with a man, and that will be the man that she wants, because they have to work for me. They don't get me very easily. I'm a powerful woman. I'm 6 foot. I'm very athletic, and so I'm not easy to draw in anyway. So whoever is going to be with me, they have to be strong. They have to have high confidence, because people talk to me, men, women, of all. So like my husband, if he was insecure, he would have been out the door a long time ago.
So growing up, did you go to college, or what did you decide to do for career-wise?
So I went to Fresno State on a full ride volleyball scholarship. I was a middle blocker, and my study was in business. I love business. And then my minor was psychology. So I love like hearing and seeing how people's mind really works. So like if I would have known, like I love real estate. Real estate was a lot of fun. But then when we moved to Oregon, I knew I wasn't going to pursue real estate any longer, because, real estate in Oregon is completely different. And I wanted to put more emphasis into me building an online course for communication. Since I've written 2 books, I really wanted to help other women just move their relationship from what could be okay to great, or from bad to good. I want to take their relationship to the next level. And all of the stuff that I have learned through reading, through relationships, through my other friends and their relationships, and how they can be more strategic in their relationship with their spouse and get to a better level with them. That's what I wanted to really do so I can help somebody else super speed, so they're not having to wait, 20, 30 years to figure out how to better their marriage.
How did you balance the student athlete life?
It was really, really hard. I had no money. I had $500 going to college. Since I lived in the dorms, then I didn't get any money because my housing and room and board were already paid for. And so I was I was really poor when I went to college, but which was fine, because I think everybody needs to be poor, especially in college. I really appreciated everything that I got. And then my Grams, she sent me $300. She got an unexpected oil check, And I felt like she had sent me $3 million. And it was so nice because I could actually buy some running shoes and a few things that I needed. And it was really valuable for me when you're on full ride volleyball scholarship, you can't work outside of other than in the summertime. So I didn't have any income coming in until I worked during the summer. It was great. It was a great learning experience. I had amazing coaches that taught me, and my teachers, I had some really amazing teachers. And even though the college setting was extremely liberal, which is fine, it was really interesting to see drama and psychology and all the really cool stuff you learn in college.
So you got out of college and did you go into real estate right away, or what did you want to do when you got out of college?
A builder asked me to do work for his model home. So it was shortly after I was doing real estate that I was working with this builder. And so I sold new homes, and that was a lot of fun helping people with that. And then I worked into resale homes, and that was a lot of fun. And then when I had my kids, then I took some time off, and then I got back into real estate about 3 years ago. And then when we moved to Oregon, I decided not to do real estate, and I'm focused on how I can better help and serve other people.
Is that when you decided to write your book, Dating Tips from Dad, How to Win the Dating Game?
No, I actually wrote that book I think I wrote that 3 years ago, and then I published that. And then I had actually wanted to write that book for 10 years. And amazingly, I had a friend of mine who was a self-published author, and he said, "Oh, well, I can help you write a book." And then one of the other guys I played volleyball with, his wife she's a published author, a romantic journey. She's on the romance side, and she could help me with some other things. And so my Dating Tips from Dad book was born, and I actually finished that book in 90 days, and I actually had it published. And I could not find my notes to save my life until after everything was done, which was even funnier. And then a year later, so 2 years ago, I wrote my marriage book on your marriage rescue plan. And I never really planned on writing a second book. So like an online course wasn't really on cue either. And the last 6 months I've been working on that. And I'm just about towards the end of being able to publish my online course on communication for women. And I just want to share all my tips with people on how to move their relationship and get it moving faster and into the right direction. And I think a lot of people that are out there, they're teaching the wrong things for women. And I'm not really sure why they teach it. It sounds good, but I just don't understand why they need to go in that direction.
Well, it seems to me, what's the divorce rate now? Is it still like 62% of all divorces end?
It's horrible. And that's not even counting the people who are miserable in a marriage. And
how high is that?
Right. Who's just staying because, for the kids, or staying because they've been together forever. So that's the part that I want to help people get to a happier and healthier relationship. And then it spills over. So if you're in a happy relationship, then it's spilling over with your kids, and it's spilling over into your work, or your coworkers see you're happy. And one of my girlfriends is getting a divorce, and all of her coworkers are like, "Wow, you're so happy," and because she got rid of the baggage, but that's the problem, is like, if you would have been able to work on yourself before the relationship ended, then the relationship would have been able to turn, and they would still be together. So now they're still paying, $5,000 in separately. One's paying $2,500 in rent, and the other one's paying $2,500 in rent. So now there's $500 or $5,000 a month going out the door for rent, where they had to sell their house and all this other stuff because of the divorce. I think if people looked at what's their end in mind, like, okay, I want to be in a healthier and happier relationship. So then you build for that. And the problems of today aren't really that big of problems. other than like just whittling little things, kind of like eating an elephant one bite at a time.
So what do you think? We have all these books. God only knows how many relationship books there are and marriage books. It's got to be in the millions, I would imagine. What has been wrong with all these books? What is not working? Why is it not working from your perspective?
I think that number one, people, they read stuff and then they don't implement it. They don't have action steps of what they can actually do. They read it. They go, oh, I read this book. I read that book. I've read a ton of marriage books. I mean, who knows? Even before I was married to my first husband, I was reading a lot of books on marriage and relationships. But I think realistically is one of the things that I don't understand is like, why are people they think that they're being honest with someone. They're going to their spouse and they're like, this is what my honest opinion is. Well, but their honest opinion isn't really honest. It's just, mean or conniving or manipulative. That's one thing that I see a lot of marriage coaches and books. They say, be honest with your spouse, but your honesty isn't really honest. So that's one thing that I really hope that people will understand, that you have to be more strategic with your spouse. What did you do to get them to, number one, ask you to go out on a date, and number two, ask you to marry you? So I see a lot of women that are so mean to their spouses, and they just tell them everything that's going on in their head, and that's not fair to them. Go to a girlfriend and tell them stuff, and bounce it off on them first. And then if you still, need to talk about it. So one of the tips that I do, like when my husband and I, when he makes me mad, then I wait 2 to 3 days before I'll say something to him, because maybe in 2 to 3 days, it's not that important to me anymore. And if it is in 2 days, then I'll be able to mention it to him, like, hey, blah, blah, blah. So that's a great defensive mechanism that I've been able to learn and master. And it's hard. A lot of people cannot do that. They want to say what's on their mind and they want to blast them right then. Well, if you're mad, then that's the worst time you want to speak to your spouse about that.
So do you think the idea that your spouse isn't your best friend is contrary to most of what I've heard in my life? Now, I've never been married, and there's a good reason for that. I was kind of unmarried, whatever that word is. That is so contrary. Have you ever gotten any feedback from that or backlash for that idea?
So far not. We'll see in my online course. But I think that I was talking to a girl today, and we were talking about, it's kind of like verbal diarrhea. Things and stuff come and pop into your head, and then you feel like you have to go to your husband and say everything that pops in your head. And she goes, oh my gosh, I never really thought of it that way. I think that when people just take a step back and think about what they say first, like, I'm extremely strategic with my husband. He has no idea. Of course, sometimes I mess up, but most of the time I'm very strategic what I say and what I do, because it will come back and bite me in the butt if I don't. So if I'm, calm and relaxed and I'm very patient on things, then before I say it, then it has much better outcome. Because my goal is back to the end in mind. I want a healthier and happier relationship. And if I tell my husband everything that pops in my mind, then, he'd probably just explode, because like, oh my gosh, because I'm always thinking all the time. And I'm not that I'm a creative, not at all. I just am always in thinking mode of, like, what can I do to streamline things and everything that I do, my house cleaning, my workouts, my building my course. How can I streamline? How can I streamline cooking? What's the fastest and quickest way to get from point A to point B? When I'm driving around and have errands to run, I try to streamline a lot of things.
So you've mentioned your online course coming up. What is that? How is that different than your previous 2 books? What's different about that one?
This one's more video and interactive, where they have call to action, they have action steps, and I have 5 lessons in the course. I wanted to make it very simple where people could get through and understand things. And then some of the things, extra bonuses that I've done, and I'm offering it at a introductory price. So I'm only going to open it 4 times this year. I'm not really sure for sure when those times are, other than mid-January for my first launch. How it'll be different is that they actually will be able to have more conversation with me, and they can give me feedback, what their action items will be for that week. And they're very simple. If they want to email me back and say, hey, Amity, I'm going to do this and this week. And it gives them a chance to master those 1 or 2 things that week. And then they can notice, okay, next week. And I want feedback too. They get to talk to me personally. And if it gets to the point, maybe I'll even offer like a 30-minute session at the end of it. And I noticed that a lot of people do not finish courses. So my goal is to actually have somebody finish the course, give me amazing feedback or terrible feedback, whatever, so that I can make the next one better for them.
So what makes you different than all the other courses and books and everything that hasn't seemed to work? I know you mentioned that, we don't implement it. Obviously, people are creatures of habit, and 90% of our lives are our habits, but how do you teach differently so that it does become a habit, or it does become a part of your life?
It's just implementing very simple little things and mastering that in 1 week time. So if somebody took that one action item, and mastered that, and they spent 7 days doing that, and then the next week they continue that one thing, and then they learn something new on week lesson number 2, and then they take that one item and then they add that, and it's very simple steps. Because, it's just like going to the gym. People will hire a trainer, and then the trainer will give them this horrible, really tough workout. And so they can't even walk the next 3 or 4 days. And then do you think they're going to want to come back to the gym? They'll say no because they're sore, they can't walk, and their diets are changed. I wanted it to be so simple that they can just implement one item and see how it goes, and then just keep going. And once they get one thing dialed in, they might not even get to the second one till week number 3. But if they just take a few of those things and implement them, and then they give me feedback, because when I ask them, okay, what are you going to do this week? Then it puts them in a spot of, okay, so then I can respond back to them and say, how did you do? And then it turns into accountability, where books don't have accountability tied to them.
Well, I know a lot of couples go to like marriage counseling. Why does that fail so much then too?
Well, I think my dad told me this story a long time ago, that marriage counseling, I really think that if people go to marriage counseling, it's dredging up all of the old and terrible things that they've done, and they're fighting negative and they're just dredging old. Where if they focus on the good things that people do and understand, like go back to really what they had in the beginning, the relationship. Why did they want to be together for the rest of their lives? Go back to that love, because it always can come back. It's always there. It gets hidden between all of the, oh, you didn't do this, or you said this, or your mother said this, or your dad said this, or your kid said this. So many people get bogged down on the negativity that they're not focusing on the positives that somebody does, because we can only live on negativity for so long, where the positive, if it doesn't surface somewhere. And I do a 5-minute journal every morning, and it is such a cool idea. And that's one thing that I actually put in my course, is this 5-minute journal of 3 goals for the day, 3 what I'm gratitude for 3 items, my affirmation of the day. And it's amazing. It could be as small as having, a nice cup of tea with a friend, or whatever, for what my goals are for that day. And then at the end of the day, I do a quick 1-minute reflection of that day. Like, what were 3 things that happened that day that totally surprised me? And that is so cool when you go, oh, wow, I wasn't expecting getting to hear from this person. Or this was really cool that my husband brought me flowers today for no reason. And then at the last item was, what could I have done better? And when I started doing that, then it really started helping me to be more grateful for the very small things. And I am extremely grateful for everything. Like, my husband works really hard for me. And so I really try to make sure that he knows how much I appreciate and love him and respect everything that he does.
Now, do you do that expecting to have that return? Do you just do it just to do it, just to be grateful and show your appreciation?
I do it with no expectations of getting anything back.
So it sounds like to me, like within your program, you incorporate a lot of what I guess the quote unquote mindfulness stuff, where you stop for a moment and you pause and you think for a second, like, what am I doing? And then you focus on what you want and not what you don't want, and just to be living gratefully. Is that accurate?
Totally, because it's so easy to be in the negative realm of the me too, like, oh, that happened to me too, or that happened to me too. I don't have time for that. I am so excited about life that I am so grateful I get to get up every morning. I am just so thankful that my kids are with me and that they have no health issues. I am grateful beyond grateful. And especially like Oregon, moving to Oregon was not on the radar, but it totally fell into our laps for a job, a house. And then we even became friends with the seller. So they get to still come to the house and visit because it's a beautiful 5-acre property. I am grateful for my ducks. Like today I looked out there and like, where's my ducks? And there's this beautiful, I don't know what it is. It's a wood duck. It's my husband and I were trying to figure out, but it's got these beautiful white stripes on it, and it's super cool. It's like, and I'm grateful for that. So if we look into more things and just be grateful for these little things, like my Aunt Jeannie, she's so cute. She was thankful that there was a perfect parking spot for her, and she would be grateful for that. I mean, how funny it is to be grateful for a parking spot. But I learned that as a young child. And I thought, that is something really awesome to be grateful for. I mean, even the super, super small things of being grateful for, a parking spot. Or somebody, like today I met a trainer, and she just sent me a text message saying, thank you so much. Everything that you said has totally inspired me today. And it was just a trainer that I'd always said hi to as I'd walk in and walking out. And it was like, wow, I inspired someone, and all I did was just spend 5 minutes with her.
Well, let's go back to the Me Too thing. I guess it's not in the media as much as it was. I don't really follow the news anymore, but some stuff filters through, and that obviously filtered through. But what would you say, what tips would you offer to someone when they experience those kind of situations, especially in dating? I mean, how do you deal with that as a woman? What's your view on that?
Well, I think that you have to go where the guys are. Meeting a guy in a bar, I don't know if you really want to meet a guy in the bar, because that's a guy who wants to drink. If you want somebody who drinks, then that would be a perfect place to meet a guy. Like, if you like NASCAR, then go to NASCAR stuff and be involved in that. If you're looking to date, then go to where the guys are. If you like dirt bike riders, go to where the dirt bikes are. And the guys, like church, they usually have a great singles program for guys and girls for singles. So like if you are involved in church, then that's a great spot to be in. My dad, he was involved with a great singles group in Tempe with a church. It was called Grace Community. And he met some amazing people. They were going on ski trips and hot balloon trips and camping. And he had a lot of fun. So I was like, well, he had no problem finding a date in that. And with the online dating, so one of my girlfriends, she gave me a great tip, even though I never had to do online dating, but she said, if you find somebody that you're interested online, communicate back and forth, but after a week, set up, then there needs to be set up a date. or someplace to meet. And it needs to really come from the guy. And then once there's the initial meeting, then you decide. And of course, you want to make sure that it's something simple like coffee or tea. So then if the date goes, not as wanting to go, you don't want to spend a lot of time and have to wait for dinner, then, coffee or tea is very non-threatening.
Now, have you ever experienced any type of harassment, sexual harassment from men in your career or your life or anything like that?
I'm pretty lucky because I'm 6 foot and pretty intimidating. I get hit on a lot, and it doesn't matter whether they're married or not. And my husband, he has made sure that I have a really big, giant diamond ring that people should be able to see from across the store. So people know that I'm married and not available. But I've been actually very lucky that maybe it's my presence. I'm very strong, and I don't put up with. I'm nice to people. So sometimes men will take that wrong. But I've done a body language course, which I actually put that in my course about body language on how to talk to people. Where if you're wanting to have someone know that you're interested, then I show how that is in my lesson. But there's a way to talk to men where they know that I'm all about business. And there's a way to talk to men where they know that I'm interested. So I know the difference between how to communicate with men and what they know and know that there's not a line to be crossed.
Well, that's interesting. You talk about body language because I've been studying neuro-linguistic programming, and I'm actually getting certified in that. And one thing you learn in that is that 80%, if not more, of what we communicate is nonverbal. So
absolutely.
That's very interesting.
That's one thing that I learned in this course as well, 80%. And I thought it was really funny when I was talking to my dad about that. And I was sharing him on this course that I had taken, and he goes, wow, that's pretty big numbers. That's why you have to be really careful what you say and what you do. There's somebody that whenever I talk to them, and she starts rolling her eyes every single time I start to speak. And so I recognize that. I know what she's saying. She's saying to me in a verbal way that she's not interested in anything I have to say. So I don't really say much.
Have you ever said that you're rolling your eyes at me? Have you ever told her that she does that?
No, because I don't think that she would recognize that she rolls her eyes. So every time she talks to me, I recognize that I go, oh, what I'm saying is not important to her. So I don't speak anymore. And I think that when people become more in tuned around their surroundings, and where, like, I won't listen to headphones other than in the gym, because that keeps me focused on working out. But I don't wear headphones outside of the gym, because I find that people need to know their surroundings. They need to know when they're walking around the grocery store. They need to know if somebody's around the corner, or like when that you're paying attention all the time. Like when you're walking out to your car, that you need to pay attention to your surroundings, because somebody might be right behind you and, take your groceries or take your bag. And I am not at all a person that is scared, but I know that if I know what's going around in my surroundings, that no one can surprise me if I'm aware. But if I have got my head in my phone and I'm talking on the phone while I'm going to my car, it's a weakness, and somebody can come and take advantage of that.
So let me ask you this. If let's say I'm a recently divorced female, and I've been married for a while, I've joined the 63% and become single again, what would you recommend to me? How do I start dating again? What do I do?
Well, number one, wait a few years before you start dating, because
years. Let's say I'm 50. I can't wait.
It doesn't matter, because you would just be attracting the same exact person that you had just been out of, because it's something that is familiar to you, and you would just automatically attract the same guy that you had just been. It's natural to go back to, the same habits and attract the same person.
Well, then what if after I waited, what do I do? How do I?
Well, the waiting part is what you do in that time period. I mean, people need to wait at least a couple of years after anything traumatic. So, like if you separate from your spouse, somebody dies, somebody really close to you tells you that they don't want to be your friend anymore, then you go into a spot where you'll have to start working on yourself. Like when my ex-husband and I, we were Tommy and Amity, and when we split up, then I'm like, okay, I need to figure out who Amity is again, and what I want. Like I knew I wanted to have 2 kids, at least 2 kids, with my goal. I wanted somebody who had not been married before, and if they had been married before, that they ended on amicable terms. I really didn't want anybody with kids. I knew I didn't want somebody who smoked cigarettes or was a drinker, and that somebody who had the morals and values I did. I actually wanted somebody who had really good credit score that was like mine. So when I asked my now husband, well, what's your credit score? This was after our first or second date. And he's like, oh, I think it's like 775. And I'm like, perfect, because I didn't want to go and clean up somebody else's credit mess. That's just me. It could, if somebody else is fine with, digging their way with somebody else because they love them so much, then that's fine. I'm just saying this is what my criteria was to date. But it was 2 years between my ex-husband and my husband now. But I took those years to figure out who I was, and I knew exactly what I didn't want, and I knew exactly what I did want. So when I met my husband, I was selling a dirt bike, and that's how I met my husband. And so he bought the dirt bike, and we went on a date, and then 5 months later, we were married, and we started having kids. So now we have a 10 and an 8-year-old. But if I would have met him 6 months sooner than I did, I would not have been ready for him.
Well, that's great. Do you think that in order to find the correct spouse or partner, you need to first figure out who you are?
Absolutely. I think that realistically, when you put out to the universe that you want a specific person in your life, you have to really be super specific. I mean, if you want somebody who goes to church, like my husband does not go to church with me, but he met all the criteria except for he doesn't go to church with me. But he has the morals and values are extremely strong. Like he will never cheat on me. He is very loyal, and it's really like he doesn't lie to me. It's just an amazing. His parents, his values and his morals are very, very similar to his parents. And I'm grateful that they had raised such an amazing kid. Man, because he's not a kid anymore. But so I just look at how they raise their kids. And, we are so valuable with our kids, like how we up with our generations that are coming behind us. But, I mean, I wrote it all down, exactly what I wanted in a spouse, and I got it. And I was like, man, I needed to be more specific on, a couple of things. But that's okay, because I got an amazing person that came into my life, and we've been together for over 12 years now. And, I see myself being with him forever, and no matter what, because I love him so much. And I don't think I've ever loved anybody as much as I love my husband.
Do you think that, you don't have to answer that if you don't want to. How much do you think your with your mother leaving and not being around in your life contributed to this wanting to be a relationship expert?
Probably none. I never really even thought that I would be a relationship expert, but I think that it really was something that started when I was in junior high. And when I was thinking about some of the questions you were asking, and I thought, wow, that is amazing, because it really started from an early age where friends were coming to me and asking me, about dating advice from junior high. And even though I wasn't really dating as much, or wasn't dating hardly at all, but people would naturally be able to come to me and ask me things And it was cool because they would come to me and know that I was the vault. They knew that I knew all the gossip in school, but I didn't tell anybody. So I was like, wow, this is great. What an honor that people felt like they can come to me and always know that I'd give them a decent answer or a good answer, to help them, guide them, and that it wasn't going to go anywhere but between her and I.
So you think it started because you were able to keep a secret, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it is that, and if people can feel comfortable knowing that they can approach you, and it goes back to like the body language. I was testing this on just the checker at, checking out at Safeway. And I had a nice open stance towards her, and I was open to what she was saying. And she was just talking to me like, oh, have a great day. And, what are you doing? Or what's going on for Christmas? Because usually people don't really have time to chat. And where if you have an open stance towards somebody, they will start to talk to you and will tell you things. So like today when I was talking to this trainer, I had an open stance and she just was telling me lots of great stuff in 5 minutes. And because I let her know I was open to it. But then when I started to close my stance and like my shoulder was towards her, then I go, okay, well, great, I got to run. And then there was my exit. So when you're able to communicate to people like, hey, I'm open to being able to hear what you have to say. And I do that with my husband. I stop whatever I'm doing and I have an open stance with him. He has no idea I do this. It's really funny that I know exactly what I'm doing. But I'm glad my husband doesn't know what I'm doing strategically.
Can you describe an open stance since we're on audio?
Well, that I'm standing and I have my palms open and not too much where he thinks that I'm looking kind of out of place, but I'm just standing facing him. So then he's got my shoulders are square to his shoulders and I can get him to talk to me about a lot of things just by giving him an open stance.
It reminds me again that almost all of our life is lived on an unconscious level. it's almost all of it. The conscious part of our life is so minimal.
Well, and then even on that note, I have to be careful what I think about, because if I think about somebody, then naturally they will call me, or I'll run into them at the gym or run into them somewhere. I'm like, I literally was just thinking about somebody, and then they'll call me or text me, or I'll run into them, and I'll have to tell them, I was just thinking of you. And so it happens that you have to be really careful consciously what you think of as well.
So where can we find your books? Where can we find this online course? Now, how many online courses are there with relationships and marriage and what have you?
I have no idea. I have not even researched as many as there are. I know that, I offer it's called a SYMBIS. So it is a relationship and it sees the compatibility and where the red flags are. So I offer that, and it's a marriage or relationship assessment. And it's nice too because it can branch into different ones. So it could be where if somebody's going to church, or it can kind of get an idea with a lot of different things, like how they can better match up together. So if they're already married, then they can do the assessment, and then they can see how they can tweak a few things. Because I think a lot of it too is that if people learn how to just do little slight tweaks in their relationship, it would just totally change their relationship in just a simple, and that's what I teach in my course, is just simple little tweaks to make you better. And for your husband, that's a lot of things too. People want to wait, and they're like, well, my husband doesn't do that. Well, it doesn't matter what your husband does or doesn't do. All you can do is start with you and be a better you, and then your spouse will just follow suit because you're working in a positive. So if you're giving him positive affirmation, you're telling him how great he is, or you do whatever it takes to help him get to the same level you want to be, and that's a healthier and happier relationship, it'll automatically come together. My books, you can find them on Amazon. It is Your Dating Tips or excuse me, my both books are available on Amazon. So Dating Tips from Dad and Your Marriage Rescue Plan, or you can just Google my name at Amity Jones, and you can find both of the books. And then my relationship course on communication, that's called rockyourmarriagetalk.com, and that'll be live shortly, probably in the next couple of weeks.
Well, great. Thank you for joining us today. I think the ending part is that really, if you want to change the world or your world, you have to first change yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If we just give just a little bit more and just pay it forward of how do you want somebody to talk to you, and then just give that love to somebody else. Because I think if we are able to give more to somebody else, then it makes us feel better. And we can helping somebody getting their groceries into their cart, that might be struggling. And of course, ask them first, may I help you? Or just something very simple. When we do things like that, then I have to do that. I do that with my spouse, of doing things nice for him. I don't make his lunch, and it's once in a great while I'll make it for him. But I like rubbing his feet, so that's my thing. Is that at night I typically rub his feet, and sometimes he'll rub mine, sometimes he doesn't. But if he doesn't rub my feet, then I can go get a massage and have somebody else rub my whole entire body.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for joining us on the show. I'm glad you are here and shared your wisdom with us. I am going to take your course, and I'm going to get your books, and I'm going to try and do better in my life. Because I tell you,
well, I can't wait.
I've had many failed relationships. I ask any of my exes. I was a very tough case.
Well, the good part about it is you're going to be listening to it from more of a woman's point of view, and then you'll be able to understand a little bit more of what your role is as the guy's view and the guy's role.
Oh, well, good. I look forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you again for listening. And please leave any comments or suggestions. We're always looking for ways to improve our show and make it the best show it can possibly be. Visit mindfulaccord.com, where you can find additional episodes and you can follow our blog. We give some helpful information on mindfulness, meditation, and just ways to manage our everyday stressful lives. And most importantly, if you know of a friend or a family member that would benefit from this story, please share it with them. Until next time, I'm Rich Decker.